Hello everyone, happy Friday. Kristen Willett here, registered dietitian. I haven't been on here all week, so I wanted to make sure that I came on today. And a while back, someone asked, like, how can you incorporate foods from your culture into your diet after weight loss surgery? And I think this is such an important question to ask, and I wanted to address it today. So you may be already familiar with the bariatric plate model that I use. So what I talk about is, roughly, this is, when you're about a year, 18 months out is when you can start eating this way more typically. You're gonna have like half your plate to be the protein, which is typically about 3 to 4 ounces of protein. Then your vegetables are roughly going to be about 1/3 of a cup to 1/2 a cup. Now, of course, there is some variation on that. And then for your carbs, it's typically around 1/4 of a cup, maybe less, it may be more. And so that's the basic model that we're using. So what I wanted to do now is kind of break that down, looking at your cultural foods to see how those can fit in. So what's important is to understand that method first. So second is then let's go back to the proteins. And so when we're talking about protein foods, typically it's either going to be animal proteins like chicken or turkey, or it could be more more plant-based proteins like beans or like tofu, for instance. So now what I want you to do is go back to the protein and then think about what proteins are part of your culture. So for instance, it could be like carnitas is used typically in Mexican cuisine. Everyone is from all over the world. Maybe your culture uses more lamb. Maybe your culture uses more fish. So depending on where you're at, kind of identify what proteins from your culture are going to be the most, are the ones that are going to bring you the most joy and the ones that you're going to like the most. Second is then look at the vegetables. So what vegetables that are typically in your culture can you bring to the plate? So for instance, like okra is a very popular vegetable, more in the South here in the United States. So that can be an option that you could use as your vegetable. So just because it's not on your bariatric guide at your surgery center, definitely ask if these foods are okay for the stage that you're at. Another option could be chayote, I believe is how you pronounce it, and that's like more of like a Mexican squash is another kind of vegetable that's often used. So think about what vegetables that you use in your culture, and then that's the part that you're going to do in the 1/3 of a cup to 1/2 a cup of vegetable. And then lastly, you're going to think about the carbs. So what kind of carbohydrates are typical? Is it going to be beans are more part of your culture? Is it going to be yams that are more part of your culture? So depending on what carbohydrates or what starches that you have, you could easily fill that part in on the bariatric plate model. So that's one of the reasons why I really like the bariatric plate model, is that you can use whatever proteins, looking at the different proteins you have, looking at the different vegetables and the different carbs, and then fitting them. Sorry, the sun keeps going in and out here, so my lighting's changing a little bit, but looking at the different foods that you have in your culture and then plugging them in to that formula to be able to make it more of your own. And then lastly, on the bariatric plate method, a lot of times I want people to include different flavors. So that's something that you can also base upon your culture. So what kind of seasonings do you use? Like for instance, is it more chili powder and cumin, or is it more, let's say, basil and soy sauce? So just kind of depending on what flavors you use, you can make that recipe more of your own, as far as including more of your culture. And of course, continuing doing activities that are more in line with your culture. There's a lot of talk about the Mediterranean diet. So you may have heard about the Mediterranean diet before. And it is a diet that's really promoted for weight loss and for decreased inflammation in the diet. Decreased inflammation in the body. Now, the thing is that people like to do in the American culture is a lot of times we like to just like analyze certain parts of it. Like, well, it's because it's high in omega-3s and it's, because it's high in vegetables. And yes, all of those things are important, but what's also important is to look at the culture itself of the Mediterranean culture. It tends to be more relaxed. They enjoy food with their family. They slow down. So you can't just necessarily always take one part of the diet and apply it to everyone. You have to look at the whole culture as a whole. So just something to be aware of as well. So you want to try to incorporate all aspects. So if hopefully you found this helpful as far as like how to include your culture after weight loss surgery. I do feel like it's very possible. If there's any specific foods that you're curious about, make sure to ask me in the comments and I will be sure to answer them. So hopefully you found that helpful and you guys have a good weekend. All right, bye.